This video is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that lets you build a website faster than you can build a relationship with the Christmas-loving prince of a fictional country. Happy holidays, Degrassi alumni! I hope you're all getting into the spirit of the season by partaking in some treasured Degrassi holiday traditions, such as cheating on your girlfriend. If you're new to this channel, I've been doing this series for a couple of years now in which I review bad or otherwise silly movies that star actors made famous by the Canadian teen drama Degrassi. It's an esoteric niche, but it's my niche. You don't really need to have seen Degrassi to watch these videos. They're mostly just an excuse for me to watch more funny Lifetime movies, but the Degrassi angle does add some extra layers to the experience. Apparently this is the 7th Degrassi video I've made, which is kind of crazy. You can find all of them in my Degrassi playlist if you'd like to catch up or rewatch. But for a while, I've had the idea to make a seasonal variation on this theme. In this series, I usually end up covering a lot of made-for-television films because they're often shot in Canada, so they have a high likelihood of including Degrassi actors. And of course, the two biggest purveyors of TV movies, Hallmark and Lifetime, are famous for their holiday movies, so a holiday video feels like a natural next step. Luckily for me, there were ample films to choose from, so much so that there were some that didn't even make it into this video. I have a feeling some of you are already wondering if I'll be covering the Lifetime movie Mistletoes and Menorahs starring Jake Epstein, one of the rare examples of non-Christian representation in a TV holiday movie. Truth be told, I actually watched that one a couple years ago and thought it wasn't really notable enough to put in a video like this. It's pretty okay for a Lifetime holiday movie, which isn't that entertaining to talk about. I also originally had the movie Holiday Joy on my list that has Luke Billick in it, as well as Sarah Weisglass and Soma Chaya and Jen Robertson, but I already had quite a few films to cover, and it only starred Degrassi actors in pretty small roles, and it didn't seem that funny, so I decided to drop it. As always, I try to prioritize movies with as big a Degrassi actor presence as possible, but I also try to balance that with how funny the movie sounds, so there are a few here that might not necessarily have a Degrassi alum top build, but trust that I have chosen the cream of the crop based on a holistic range of judging criteria. I'm basically like the head programmer of the stupidest film festival of all time. Anyway, I've curated a wonderful selection for you today. We have movies starring actors from numerous Degrassi eras. I guess there's no Next Class representative on my list, but come on, is it my fault that Eric Osborne hasn't been in any Christmas movies? Take it up with his agent, not me. Without further ado, in no particular order, let's get into it. Christmas with a Prince. In Christmas with a Prince, when Playboy Prince Alexander of the fictional country of San Savare is injured in a ski accident, his team decides that the best place for him to lay low during his recovery is the pediatric ward of the local hospital. Here, Alec reconnects with pediatrician Tasha, his old boarding school classmate, and of course this soon blossoms into love. This movie has Melinda Shankar in it, aka Allie from Degrassi, as the prince's royal handler, I think. And, funnily enough, the lead in this movie, Caitlin Lieb, also appeared on Degrassi as a journalist named Jennifer. She was one of the victims of Claire's boss Asher's sexual harassment, and also covered some of the Hollingsworth family drama in season 14.
Great, okay, so what is the last piece of advice your dad gave to you?
Oh, that's easy. Being gay is ridiculous.
I have a folder on my computer labeled Gay Degrassi Clips. Do you know how many gay Degrassi clips you have to use in your day-to-day life to justify having an entire designated folder for it? I do.
Maybe you should keep your gay stuff a little more private. Sorry, no can do.
When I first heard of Christmas with a Prince, I assumed that it was a shameless ripoff of the Netflix movie A Christmas Prince, but in fairness, royalty-themed stories have apparently been around in the TV Christmas movie scene for much longer than the Christmas Prince franchise. That being said, Christmas with a Prince did spawn a trilogy that just happens to follow the exact same trajectory as the Christmas Prince trilogy, so it may well still be a ripoff. But we can't credit A Christmas Prince with creating this subgenre or anything. Christmas with a Prince is a very funny movie. You get varying levels of production quality with these types of films, and I would say that this one is on the lower end of that spectrum. It's funny to see movies like this that clearly have a very low budget, but also kind of have ambitious intentions, because the contrast becomes very clear. For example, most of the movie is supposed to take place in a hospital, which is kind of a bigger budget location, and a lot of it looks not great, but the funniest example comes at the end when the characters are supposed to be attending this royal Christmas gala, and they walk into the location, and you're like, oh, honey. You can tell that they probably put a lot of effort into the set deck, but it still looks like a middle school dance. The cheap costumes certainly don't help sell it either. There's tons of funny stuff in this movie. The royal subject matter comes with a lot of stuff that's totally unrealistic to how royalty works, and I know it's just a silly Christmas movie and it doesn't matter that much, but I want to point some of it out anyway. The prince is apparently a vlogger, which no real royal would ever be allowed to do, but also we never see him doing it after the first scene, so maybe he stopped. At one point, the main character is watching a news report about the prince, and they show all these shirtless model headshots of him, and it's like, why would the prince of a country have photos like these? That would be a massive scandal. We eventually meet the king, the prince's dad, played by the guy from The Nanny, or as I best know him, the vampire from the movie Mom's Got a Date with a Vampire.
Perhaps some garlic bread to start.
No, thank you.
Anyway, the king is dressed in this ridiculous outfit. Could you imagine if, for like King Charles's Christmas speech this year, he rolled up looking like this? The ugly blazer with the pants that don't even match and the clown red bow tie, it's insane. On the subject of the monarchs in the movie, I have to say, the actor playing the prince was really not working for me. I'm not trying to be mean, but honestly, he appears to have had a lot of work done, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but I did find it really distracting. He looks like one of those Chad memes come to life. But he also just wasn't very good in the movie. He's doing a pretty bad British accent.
Alexander, if your brother knew...
I get it. Hey, I'm not him. I'm sorry I disappoint you. I'm sorry you're stuck with the bad son.
I'm sorry, but there are a couple scenes with him and this child actor, and the child actor is doing a better job at acting. I'm not even joking. He gives a really solid performance.
Every day at 11 when I get treatment, we listen to the songs together. That way she's here with me.
Oh, that's very cool.
Another character I wasn't crazy about was Tasha's half-brother, who's kind of our comic relief. But I don't think this one is about the actor so much as it's just this character. He might be one of my new least favorite characters in all of fiction. He's this sort of man-child, and I don't know what it was, but I found him really grating.
Just like I like my coffee. Exactly like gross tea.
They give him a romantic subplot with the Melinda Shankar character, and I just couldn't stand that. I just did not buy that this cool woman would be so into this clown. But in my opinion, by far the funniest thing in the movie is its relationship to the Canadian country singer Genevieve Fisher. You might be thinking, who's Genevieve Fisher? Yeah, so at one point in the movie, Prince Alec meets one of the kids in the pediatric ward who's getting chemotherapy, and the kid tells him about this playlist that his mom made him with his favorite artist on it, Genevieve Fisher.
My favorite artist is Genevieve Fisher. Want to listen?
I obviously didn't know who that was, so I looked her up. Like I said, she's a Canadian country singer, and she has about 3,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. Okay, the kid also appears to only listen to her Christmas music specifically, which makes it extra funny. Later, right as the kid is about to go into surgery, Alec shows up, and he reveals that he's brought the kid's mom, who usually isn't able to be with him at the hospital because of work. He's managed to get the mom there. And then he's like, look who else I have with me.
Oh, I almost forgot. I have a small,
Genevieve Fisher, our favorite singer.
I tell you what, you go through there and beat this thing up, and I'll stick around and we'll sing some songs together tonight.
I love that she's like, if you stick around until after the surgery, I'll sing with you. Like, imagine if he hadn't made it through the surgery. So after that, we get this scene of world-famous singer Genevieve Fisher serenading the pediatric ward.
O'er the fields we go, laughing all the way.
Jingle Bells is one of those songs that just can't really be made to sound cool or artsy, no matter how nicely you sing it. So that's the Genevieve Fisher part of the movie. I just had to mention this because it's so funny that this little boy character, his favorite musician, would be a random, not very famous Canadian country singer. I'm sorry to put Genevieve Fisher on blast like this. I'm sure she's good, but the movie did kind of set her up. Another scene I thought was pretty funny was late in the film when this woman shows up at the hospital asking for the prince.
Having a little celebration in there.
Oh, how wonderful. Charming.
Huh, I wonder if this girl's gonna be bad news. She introduces herself as Alec's fiancé, which I was actually down for because that's honestly higher stakes than we usually get in these movies. But then Alec immediately explains that she's not his fiancé, she just wants to be his fiancé. And then at the royal Christmas ball, it suddenly becomes a story about class, which is not what the rest of the movie has been about.
You can play dress up all you like, but even you know, inside your heart, that you're not one of us.
Just a deeply weird movie. It says at the beginning that it was based on a Harlequin novel, which is intriguing, but I couldn't find said novel on the Harlequin website, so I'm curious about that. I want to read the novel that inspired Christmas with a Prince, The National Tree. The National Tree follows a boy named Rock Burdock. When he was born, his dad planted a tree for him, and he had to move a big rock to do it. So they named him Rock.
My dad had to move a giant rock to do it. That's how I got my name.
When he said that in the opening narration, I thought he was going to do one of those moments like, just kidding, that would be ridiculous. But no, he was serious. That's his name. Now, Rock is a teenager and his tree has grown with him, and for some reason, someone from the White House comes to his house one day and says, "Congratulations, Rock, we have chosen your tree to be the national tree that we will plant outside the White House."
It won. It's our new national tree.
It won.
Well, let me see if I understand this. You want to uproot the tree, put it on the back of the truck, drive it across country, and plant it at the White House.
But Rock's protective single dad doesn't trust the White House people to safely transport the tree, so he decides that he and Rock will drive the tree themselves cross-country from Oregon to Washington, D.C. This is probably one of the funnier Hallmark movies I've seen. It's just such a profoundly stupid premise for a movie. Apparently it was based on a book, which is even funnier. I can't imagine how one would stretch this material into a novel. The Degrassi actors in this one are Evan Williams, aka Emma's college boyfriend Kelly, in the role of Rock, and Paula Brancati, aka Jane, in the role of Katie, one of Rock's online friends who eventually joins him on the National Tree pilgrimage. Ted Atherton, who I think played Claire's dad on Degrassi, is also in it, along with legend Jane Eastwood, who played Sean's mom on Degrassi, and has also been in a zillion other things. One of the funnier things in this movie is that Rock is a vlogger. They even refer to him with that term, which I thought was exciting for a movie from 2009.
That footage on the vlog, coming into Salt Lake out of the mountains, that was wicked.
He apparently wants to be a filmmaker, so he has this little online friend group from around the world.
Cinema is my life.
Probably the craziest scene in the movie is this part where Rock and his dad have to drive through a forest fire while transporting the tree. I guess there was no way they could have turned around and taken a detour or something. They just decide to drive through it. So we get this wild forest fire action sequence, which, in fairness, most Hallmark movies do not have. At the end of the movie, they find out there's been a change of plans, and the White House is actually now going to cut down the tree instead of planting it. So, of course, that sets off a huge protest.
I want everyone who visits Washington from America and all over the world to see it, and to understand that in its own funny way, This tree is America.
This tree is America. So then fake Barack Obama, I assume, personally calls the guy who is going to cut down the tree and tells him to plant it instead.
He wants you to vacate the property now, and he wants me to get a planting crew here ASAP.
Wouldn't it be funny if this guy just made that up to get rid of them? I feel like there aren't even that many specific things I can point to as funny moments. It's kind of just the entire experience as a whole. The presentation is very melodramatic at times, which contrasts pretty hilariously with the subject matter, which is just Christmas tree road trip.
This is my chance to get out of here. This is my chance to do something cool. To meet the president. But you don't care about me. All you care about is the tree.
The credits are in Comic Sans. I would highly recommend this one. I know you're all probably waiting with bated breath to hear me talk about Beethoven's Christmas Adventure, but first let's hear a word from our sponsor. You already know what it is. This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Squarespace is a website building platform that makes creating a great site easy and accessible. They have all sorts of beautiful templates to help get your website started, and you can customize them as much as you want to make sure your site really speaks to you. Maybe you want to start an online store, to sell hot chocolate and poinsettias. With Squarespace, you can sell products, services, or even custom merch with ease. You can post videos directly to your Squarespace site if you're a vlogger like Rock Burdock, and I love their blogging tools.
This is my blog.
And the holiday season is a great time to get these things started. Give yourself the gift of a website that isn't ugly. Or is ugly, if that's how you want it to look. Also, I've never thought about this before now, but it would be really funny to get someone a domain as a gift. Merry Christmas, I got you rats.lgbt. If you would like to try Squarespace's great features, you can go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to purchase rats.lgbt or Degrassi.actor, you can go to squarespace.com/Mulcahy for 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thanks, Squarespace. Bye, Squarespace. Beethoven's Christmas Adventure. Beethoven's Christmas Adventure is about a kid whose dad died a while ago and now is being raised by his mom, who works too much, and one day a Christmas elf accidentally flies away from the North Pole and loses Santa's toy bag and lands in Minnesota. I do like that this movie is set in Minnesota, but then the elf is found by the kid and by Beethoven, a St. Bernard who is canonically a famous movie star. I'll get to that. And the kid and the elf and Beethoven have to get back Santa's magical toy bag from an evil guy who owns a toy store and has found the toy bag and wants to sell all the toys at gouged prices. This was probably one of the most miserable viewing experiences I've had all year. While watching this movie, I realized that I haven't done a lot of kids' movies in this series, and now I think I know why. There's just a special brand of misery that comes with a bad kids movie, because at least in these Hallmark and Lifetime romances and thrillers and whatnot, there's at least the slightest bit of sophistication, just in the fact that they know they have to appeal to an adult audience that has lived in the world for a while. They know they can't completely phone it in because they need at least a few adults to take it seriously. But bad kids' movies are often so low effort because they think that their child audience is stupid and will just watch anything you put in front of them. As a result, Beethoven's Christmas Adventure is 88 minutes of fart jokes and burp jokes and CGI talking dog mouths. There's no wit, there's no genuine whimsy, it's just slop. Pure dog slop. So let's talk a little bit about the Beethoven franchise. Come on, you have time for this. You clicked on this video. I had never seen any of the other Beethoven movies, so I decided to do some research on where this one falls in the Beethoven canon, as it were. The original Beethoven film from 1992 was written by John Hughes under a pseudonym, and Amy Holden Jones, the director of the Slumber Party Massacre? I'm familiar. Beethoven is about a St. Bernard named Beethoven who does stuff, I imagine. Roger Ebert gave it 2.5 stars. Then there was Beethoven's second in 1993, in which Beethoven sires a litter of puppies.
Puppies! Little Beethoven!
up's a dog without getting it neutered? Strangely, the film featured an original song by James Ingram and Dolly Parton, which was nominated for an Academy Award.
People all say love is wonderful.
After a 7-year break, Beethoven's Third came out in 2000, the first one to be released direct-to-video. The plot of that one hinges on a stolen computer code hidden in a DVD of the Don Knotts comedy The Shakiest Gun in the West. So that's interesting. I mean, not really, but Beethoven's Fourth came out in 2001. This was the second and last Beethoven film to feature Judge Reinhold. Beethoven's Fifth was released on my 3rd birthday, and thank God I was too busy absolutely wrecking my VHS copy of Toy Story 2 to ever even think about watching it. Beethoven's Big Break, released in 2008, was a soft reboot of the Beethoven franchise, with no relation to the previous films besides the titular dog. In this one, Beethoven becomes a Hollywood star. Apparently in this movie, they find Beethoven as a stray. Imagine finding a stray, purebred Saint Bernard. The next installment in the series from 2011 is Beethoven's Christmas Adventure. This movie stars everybody's favorite emo boy, Monroe Chambers, aka Eli Goldsworthy from Degrassi.
It tricks you into thinking that things are fine. They're not fine. Nothing is fine. It's all wrong!
And you know this movie is bad because even Monroe Chambers is not enough to make me excited to talk about it. I mean, don't get me wrong, he lights up the screen, as always, but even he can't save it. This movie actually has a pretty star-studded cast in general. We have Eli from Degrassi, we have the mom from Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, we have disgraced former child actor Corey in the House, we have this guy, whom I'm embarrassed to say I mainly recognize from a season of Supernatural that I haven't even watched, and finally, in one scene, we have the mom from the Lifetime movie Cheerleader Abduction, which I covered in my Lifetime Cheerleader video, so that was exciting for me.
Curly fries? The rest stop on Highway 96?
Weird thing about this movie, Beethoven talks in it. In researching the other Beethoven movies, I learned that Beethoven doesn't talk in the other movies. This was the first one where they had him talk. Why would they do that? With a few rare exceptions, the best animal-related kids' movies I've seen are the ones where the animals don't talk. Beethoven talking in this movie is a huge misstep. It's weird and out of place. I kept forgetting he could talk until he would start talking again.
Thank you, Beethoven.
No problem, kid.
This movie has every joke. It has guy falls from a tree and hits every branch on the way down joke, sleeping guy thinks he's being kissed by a pretty lady but is really being licked by a dog joke, guy gets dragged all over the place holding onto the leash of a running dog joke. If I had to list anything I liked about this movie, other than it being set in Minnesota, I guess I would say that the way it's so generic is kind of funny at times, especially when it comes to the villains.
So come on down and visit me, Sylvester Smirch, and Crazy Kenny!
It's just like the most pure distillation of this Pinky and the Brain kind of trope, and you know, the sheer non-creativity on display is mildly funny to me. Another funny thing about this movie is how everyone in it knows who Beethoven is. He is a massive celebrity in this universe. Everyone can recognize him just by looking at him.
I think that's Beethoven.
Who?
Beethoven, the world-famous dog?
And the thing about a dog celebrity is that if you showed me a picture of Beethoven and said to me, that's Beethoven, I would be like, oh yeah, I've heard of that. I guess that's Beethoven, the dog. But if you just showed me a picture without saying anything, I'd just be like, oh, that's a dog. It's a dog. It's Saint Bernard. Cool dog. If you showed me the Bush's Baked Beans dog, rest in peace, I would not know that it was the Bush's Baked Beans dog unless you told me. To the untrained eye, dogs of the same breed all kind of look the same. no offense. So I think it's very silly that everyone in this movie, the second they see a St. Bernard, know that it is Beethoven, the movie star St. Bernard specifically. At the end of this movie, they're like, how is Elfman going to get back to the North Pole? And they have the brilliant idea to feed Beethoven the dog the magical berries that make reindeer fly, and get Beethoven to fly the sleigh home. But for this scene, they actually strapped the dog to a sleigh and made him pull it? I don't like that. I know St. Bernards are huge, I'm sure they're strong, but I don't like that. I wish they hadn't done that. No need to watch this one, if you ask me. There are far better bad Monroe Chambers movies out there. Letters to Satan Claus. Letters to Satan Claus follows Holly Frost, a cynical reporter who is forced to return to her extremely Christmassy hometown of Ornaments to do a feature that she hopes will bag her an anchorwoman position.
And because you'll never succumb to having children, I want you to fill that empty chair.
But Holly has a dark past. As a child, she wrote an angry letter to what she thought was Santa, but misspelled it and thus accidentally wrote a letter to Satan, asking him to make her parents go away. So Satan granted her wish. And when she gets to Ornaments, she accidentally rekindles this Christmas Satan magic, leading to a series of Christmas-themed deaths in the town. I can't believe I'm saying this, but it turns out that Letters to Satan Claus is actually kind of a diamond in the rough. You've probably noticed the difference in tone and subject matter between this film and the rest of the films I've been talking about, and that's because this one is a sci-fi original. While Hallmark makes mostly romances and mystery films, and Lifetime makes mostly thrillers, true crime-inspired films, and some holiday romances, sci-fi original films are generally in the horror and sci-fi genres, often with comedic elements and often aimed at a more adult audience than Hallmark or Lifetime. I've covered a couple sci-fi films in this series before, and something I'm always saying about sci-fi originals is that they often seem like they're trying to aim for that so bad it's good territory, and that often pretty much ruins it. To me, you need that naive camp to be truly good bad, so films that are going for that intentionally mostly just come off as annoying and affected. A movie like Mississippi River Sharks, which I covered in my last Degrassi Actors video, is a good example of that. So going into Letters to Satan Claus, I kind of assumed based on the title that it would be another example of that phenomenon, just a low-effort, wannabe camp bad movie. But let me be the first to say, possibly the first ever to say, Letters to Satan Claus is a delightful surprise. Letters to Satan Claus is not some low-effort movie trying to be funny bad and failing. It's actually a decent movie that's trying to be funny good and succeeding. It's essentially a parody of the Hallmark formula. It gets a lot of its humor from the juxtaposition of this very cynical, misanthropic protagonist against this fantastical, utopian, Hallmark-style Christmas town. And I realize that there's a fine line between the thing I just described disliking, sci-fi movies trying too hard to be campy and bad, and what I'm describing as being good, a movie being an intentional parody. But I think the difference is that something like Letters to Satan Claus, for one thing, just contains a lot more genuine wit and intelligence and sharpness in the writing, but also has very clear intentions as a satire. Like the Sharknado movies, for example, are trying to be funny, but they don't really have a joke. You know what I mean? They kind of rely on the premise of the series itself to be the funny thing, and therefore, besides the exaggerated style, they pretty much play it straight. The Sharknado movies have a ridiculous premise and a goofy tone, but I wouldn't say there's anything actually satirical or parodic about them. They don't really have anything funny or interesting to say about the material or the genre. Letters to Satan Claus, on the other hand, displays a clear knowledge of and affection for the TV Christmas movie formula, and playing on that idea and both exaggerating and subverting the tropes of that genre provide a really solid foundation for the comedy in the film. I went straight to Letterboxd after watching it, and a lot of the reviews were people saying things like, this movie is so bad it's funny, or like this person says, it's literal garbage, but everyone was so committed to it. And frankly, I think these reactions are kind of misreading the text. Because yeah, they were committed to it, because it's a comedy. They were doing these silly, over-the-top things on purpose. It didn't happen on accident. But let me tell you about the movie. First are Degrassi actors. This movie features Miriam McDonald, aka Emma Nelson, as the mayor of the town of Ornaments, Danica Bells. Everyone in the movie has a Christmas-themed name. Obviously, there's our protagonist, Holly Frost, but there's also this set of brothers named Chris Pringle and Chad Pringle, Cookie Winters, Joy Wreath. It's great. I thought Miriam McDonald was the only Degrassi actor in this, but then at one point I was looking at this guy, Chad Pringle, and I really thought he looked familiar. So I looked him up and realized that it was Alex Harouche, the actor who played Leo, Allie's abusive Parisian boyfriend, in season 13 of Degrassi. Small world up there in Canada. Credit to this guy, I remember thinking he was convincing as Allie's abusive Parisian boyfriend, and he's equally convincing as this type of character. So he's got the range.
Ever since I came back to Ornaments, weird shit has
Chad is harboring a crush on the local hot apple farmer, whose name is John Smith. John Smith eventually reciprocates, and in a thrilling intertextual connection to one of our previous movies, Christmas with a Prince, in like the final minute of the movie, John Smith reveals that he is actually the prince of a small fictional country.
My real name is Johannes Strudel, and I'm the Prince of Meccano.
You mean Monaco?
No, Meccano. It's a small country in West Eastern Europe.
Again, they clearly had a deep understanding of the genre. But that's just one minor funny thing in this movie. Right off the bat, there are just a lot of great, silly details that make for funny dialogue. Oh, hey. In the opening scene of the movie, we see Holly Frost as a bratty child begging her parents for the fictional equivalent of a Barbie car.
But Darby needs somewhere to drive around with past Kimber and Ben!
And her dad is like, sorry, honey, you know money's been tight since I lost my job at the Christmas tree skirt factory.
The Christmas tree skirt factory is closing. We have to save money until I can find another job.
The humor in this movie is pretty mean-spirited, but I don't mean that in a bad way. The protagonist is supposed to be a pretty bad person at the beginning of the film, and the resulting jokes are very wicked in a fun way. When she meets the camera guy she's going to be working with for her feature in Ornaments, she immediately finds him attractive, then gets turned off when she realizes he has a wife and kids, and then immediately gets turned back on when she finds out that his wife is dead.
It's my wife Lacey and our daughter Taylor.
Huh.
Lacey passed last year.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's not the only dead wife joke in the movie. There's this other love interest for Holly, Chris Pringle, brother of soon-to-be Prince Chad Pringle, whose wife died in a hot air balloon accident.
Hot air balloon? Like it caught on fire? No. One fell on her.
There's a running joke that any young delinquents in the town are vaping teens.
Chris spotted some vaping teens trespassing the Goldmans.
But I'm telling you, this is probably just a couple of teenage vaping hooligans out trying to have a good time.
This is some vaping teens playing an April Fool's prank.
And the worst thing the vaping teens ever do is put up Christmas lights on a house that wasn't decorated for Christmas. Even the vandalism in this town is based in holiday cheer. Again, can't believe I'm saying this, but one thought I had while watching the movie is that Letters to Satan Claus is basically the Mean Girls of television Christmas movies. And I say that because it is endlessly quotable. I truly believe that if this movie could get a little more attention online, it could become a cult classic.
Don't you mean Office Holiday Party? Please don't give me that war on Christmas face, Christy.
Look, I think it's best you find a new cameraman. And a new man friend.
The Christmas candle. Inside your heart, it's still lit.
The Christmas candle inside your heart. It's still lit. It is still a sci-fi original, so it's clearly cheap, the effects don't look great or anything, but I was totally willing to look past that because of the writing and the clear effort that everyone was putting into it despite the budget constraints. For a sci-fi original Christmas movie called Letters to Satan Claus, I think this is a home run. Director Emma Jean Sutherland, who apparently was also first assistant director on Christmas with a Prince, I salute you. Writer Michael Zara, please keep writing sci-fi movies. I truly believe that you could become the Pedro Almodovar of television Christmas films. And that's not a title I would give out to just anyone. This and Who is Killing the Cheerleaders are the two biggest hidden gems of the modern TV movie landscape that I've been able to find. And that's the true beauty of making these videos, is that we get to rediscover them and give them the critical reassessment that they deserve. Christmas at Maple Creek. In Christmas at Maple Creek, romance novelist Diana returns to the historic pioneer village that she grew up in? I wasn't super clear on that. She returns to the village, Maple Creek, only to find that the town is on the verge of going out of business, so she teams up with strapping blacksmith Carter to find a way to save the town. Of course, Carter is played by Jake Epstein, aka Craig Manning from Degrassi. On its face, Christmas at Maple Creek isn't too bad for a Lifetime Christmas movie. The production value is better than most. Much of the dialogue and scenarios are actually competent. The acting is generally good. But despite not being too bad, there are still a lot of really funny details and moments in this movie, so I couldn't not share it with you. For one, as you might have already noticed, it's kind of hard to describe what Maple Creek even is. I think it's like a historical reenactment kind of place. They make it clear that Diana's friends who live here do run it as a business of some sort, but like also there's a town blacksmith and people that live here permanently. I don't know, I was just never sure to what extent the town was like a pioneer-themed tourist attraction and to what extent it was a real, active town. Doesn't matter that much. The point is, it's an excuse to occasionally dress our actors in fun period costumes, and I really appreciated that. You don't see that every day in these movies. I also think it's interesting that this film is a little bit metatextual. It's partly in the inclusion of the romance author as protagonist, but also I have a little theory about Christmas at Maple Creek. I could be totally wrong, but watching it, I wondered if perhaps they were a little inspired by the Hallmark original series When Calls the Heart. Now, I've barely seen any of this show, I'm mostly only aware of it, but When Calls the Heart is a period TV show based on a series of books set in the early 20th century Canadian frontier. I realize that Maple Creek is probably supposed to be emulating a slightly earlier time than that, but I don't know. Something about the period costuming and the historical romance novel element and the whole frontier thing, and of course Hallmark and Lifetime being kind of two sides of the same coin, made me wonder if the person who wrote this was a When Calls the Heart fan. Speaking of the writer, apparently he wrote Sharknadoes 5 and 6, so my apologies, Scotty, for bad-mouthing the Sharknado movies in my last review. Anyway, something a little weird in this movie is the character of Carter, the blacksmith. For one thing, he says he is a history teacher and part-time blacksmith, which is insane.
Carter is our new blacksmith.
Part-time blacksmith. By day, I'm a history professor at the college in town.
But also, while I didn't dislike this character because he was played by Jake Epstein and therefore was likable, I did think Carter was doing too much. He's really heavy on the playful rudeness, in my opinion a little too much for someone he's just met.
A romance novelist scared of falling in love. How ironic.
I think Jake Epstein has this great, kind, gentle energy, which keeps his dialogue from ever feeling too venomous, but had this been any other actor, I probably would have been a little put off by just how much he negs her throughout the movie.
Remaining aloof is part of my brand.
Oh, I didn't realize we were in the presence of the great Greta Garbo of the local literary intelligentsia.
He did kind of eat her up with that line, though. Like, if I were her, I would be so embarrassed. The characters ultimately decide to save Maple Creek by dressing it up with references to Diana's romance novels and throwing a big party for all of her fans. And Carter, history teacher that he is, keeps getting really caught up in the idea of historical accuracy.
When settlers first came to Maple Creek, materials like this were too sparse to waste on something as frivolous as a Christmas tree.
I'm a novelist, not a historian.
Look, you screw with people's ideas of the past by turning historical figures into bodice-ripping lovers.
Diana wants the town to have the Pony Express from her books, and Carter's like, Maple Creek didn't actually have a Pony Express. How dare you?
And we have to turn the stable into a Pony Express station. Could you make a Pony Express sign?
Maple Creek never had a Pony Express station.
And it's like, sorry, Carter, but I really don't think it matters that much. And also, this town doesn't have enough money to even operate. If the Pony Express will be a draw for visitors, build the damn Pony Express. He seems really uncomfortable with the idea of turning Maple Creek into a commercial tourist destination.
This is a historic site. Okay, not an amusement park. I agreed to help you because I thought you wanted to recreate Christmas in 1870.
But like, what was Maple Creek before? Yeah, it's not Disneyland, but it is supposed to be a tourist destination, right? Again, I'm confused about the business model of Maple Creek. In fairness, though, he does eventually apologize for being so stubborn about her changes, and he's apologizing so seriously about the Pony Express, so I forgive him.
I'm sorry for giving you such a hard time about the Pony Express station.
The last distracting thing about the main couple was the age gap between the actors. This is not age gap discourse, it's not problematic, and it's certainly not on the actors. Whoever cast this movie should have paid a little more attention to this, in my opinion. It's just that Jake Epstein was in his 30s at the time of filming, and Jenny Ross was like 21, and they both look it, I would say. I wouldn't say it really made me uncomfortable or anything. It's more just that Diana, the character, is clearly supposed to be a little older than that, and there's no acknowledgement of the couple's age gap in the movie, so I'm confused at the decision to cast someone that young in the role. She's this established romance novelist who's published several books, so it just feels like it would make a lot more sense to cast someone at least a few years older. Disturbingly, in that movie Holiday Joy that I ended up deciding not to review in this video, this actress, Jenny Ross, is in it playing a high schooler at the age of like 16 or 17, and that movie only came out 4 years before this one, so that kind of reaffirmed in my mind that she feels a little too young for this specific role. It's not a huge deal, I just wanted to point it out because it did distract me. Okay, there's this sequence where Diana and Carter are trapped together in Diana's cabin during a thunderstorm when the power goes out. Which, credit where credit is due, I liked this. This is the kind of romantic premise that actually works on me. It's cute. But Diana makes them dinner, and she makes the most cursed-looking thing you've ever seen. What's wrong, Jake Epstein? You've hardly touched your goop. The movie culminates in this pioneer-themed Maple Creek ball, which I loved because, again, we get to see our actors in pretty period costumes. But there's a point where Carter is going to confess his feelings to Diana, but sees her having an interaction with her former work crush, Greg, and of course misunderstands the situation, doesn't ask her about it, and immediately leaves to go fulfill his dream of starting a horse ranch in Montana.
If I leave now, I could be at Uncle Timothy's by tomorrow night. There's nothing here for me anymore.
You're not even going to try to talk to her first? The following sequence of events is so funny. First, Carter goes to Diana's friend Kayla, who runs Maple Creek, and hands her a check for his entire life savings. He's like, I don't care, I'm giving it all to Maple Creek. Kayla, for her part, doesn't even push back on this at all. There's no, oh, we can't accept this. She just takes it, no questions asked. Good for her. Then, literally the second after Carter walks out, Kayla goes over to Diana to tell her the good news that Maple Creek is saved. So this is already crazy. I get that these kids love Maple Creek, but donating your entire life savings seems a little short-sighted.
No, that money was for his horse ranch in Montana.
Oh, I can't believe he'd give all that up for this.
Yeah, neither can I. Carter, there are more important things in life than Maple Creek. Diana asks if she can see Carter, and Kayla's like, "I'm so sorry, he's gone." Why doesn't she just tell Diana to go after him? He left 30 seconds ago.
He left for Montana.
He left for Montana. What, is he already on the plane? But it's okay. Diana does manage to catch up with him, and the rest is history. The rest is a history teacher who's also a part-time blacksmith. Like I said, certainly not an awful movie by Lifetime standards, but there's still plenty of unintentional comedy here. Jake Epstein is in so many TV holiday movies these days. Keep 'em coming, Jake. I love this for you. Thank you for joining me on another Degrassi actor adventure. We always have an interesting time, don't we? Subscribe for even more of these, I guess. I hope you all have a great holiday season, whatever it is you celebrate or don't celebrate. I have a lot planned for the new year. I have a bit of a passion project that I'd like to finally get to in January. It's one of those things that might not get a lot of views, but would just make me so happy that it doesn't really matter. After that, I really have to stop procrastinating and watch the rest of Teen Wolf so that I can finish that series, and after that, I think it's finally time to make the wrong Lifetime video. I know, it's been like over 2 years since I first said I would do it. It will happen, I promise. I'd also like to finally start a Patreon, maybe. I've had some people ask me from time to time if I have one, so I feel like hopefully the demand is there, and I would like to be able to make YouTube more of a viable way to support myself. YouTube limited ads on my social network fanfiction video, which was one of my most popular videos in a while, and apparently there was just nothing I can do about it, so it'd be nice to have a way to monetize my work that is not dependent on this weird, unknowable authority whose decisions are seemingly completely arbitrary. So stay tuned. I'll probably post some more in-depth updates on my community tab eventually. In the meantime, I hope I've given you some good holiday viewing recommendations. Jake Epstein himself was actually going to be in this video, but he left for Montana to start his horse ranch like 30 seconds before I started filming, and I couldn't chase after him or anything because he left for Montana.